South versus North slavery in the United States. Hello everyone, my name is Gertrude Hepindasi and I would like to go ahead and present the purpose of my video today. As you all know, slavery in the United States was a huge disgrace of the black race. However, we should know that slavery did not affect all regions in the United States, and among the regions affected by this trend, we observe some differences on how slaves were treated. My video today will focus on the North slavery versus the South slavery. In order to compare those two regions, I will present and discuss the life of few slaves writers from the South and from the North. Without any further ado, let me start with the life of Harriet Jacob, born in Edenton, North Carolina in the fall of 1813. Her early life was full of happiness, as she herself wrote in her autobiography, I quote, "We lived together in a comfortable home. She was still happy even when her mother passed away and when she moved to her mother mistress' home, where she will learn how to write and read. Then when she turned 12 years old and was an adolescent, she was given to the mistress' niece. Too young at the time, the father of the niece will be her master and she will be introduced to harsh slave conditions. She will be harassed, tortured, and sometimes beaten. Harriet will come up with a plan to disrupt her master harassment. She will establish a relationship with a white lawyer, and from that relationship, she will become pregnant and have 2 kids. Her final years are marked by her escape in June 1835. She will hide herself in a tiny space at her grandmother's house until she escaped to Philadelphia in 1842. Then from Philadelphia to New York City, where she will be reunited with her daughters, and from New York City to Rochester, where she will be close to her brother, another fugitive. In Rochester, she will start her new life as an abolitionist fighter. Many slaves moved to the northern states to find refuges against persecution from the south, which tell us a little bit on how freely and peacefully blacks were living in the north. This brings us to talk about a writer from the north, Harriet Wilson. Harriet Wilson was born in Milford, New Hampshire. Her father died when she was very young, and she will be abandoned by her mother at the farm of Nehemiah Hayward Jr. She became a servant or some sort of slave. In return for her service, she will receive a room to sleep, a board, and will be trained in life skills. Trouble will start for Wilson when she turned the age of an adolescent. She will be mistreated by her mistress and beaten at the same time, and her health will start to deteriorate. She will try to escape, but will realize that she does not have much of a choice outside there by herself. So she will stay, and later on, her mistress' daughter will pass away and things will start to get better in her life. At the age of 18, she will be sent to another family to sue. Her adult age will be mostly marked by her marriage with an escaped slave named Thomas Wilson in 1851. She will be abandoned by her husband after her marriage. Pregnant, she will be sent to a poor farm in Goffstown, where her son will be born in 1852, but the son will die in 1860 of high fever. She will be actively involved in organization and maintenance of children. From the north, we will examine also the life of Frederick Douglass, a former slave and eminent human rights leader in the abolition movement. Frederick was born in 1818 in Talbot, Maryland, into slavery. At his young age, he was asked to live at the plantation, and his mother will die when he was just 10 years old. He will be sent to Baltimore, home of Huff Art, where he will learn how to read and write at the age of 12, and this against the will of the master. He will start expressing his opposition against slavery through readings. He will teach other slaves on the plantation, then later will be sent to work for Edward Covey, who had a reputation as a slave breaker. Frederick will be abused but will always fight back. He will try to escape twice during his adult age before he succeeds, and will be helped the third time by Murray, with whom he will fall in love and will get married in 1838. And after that, he will become actively involved in the abolition movement. Similarities between the North and the South slavery through the study of Harriet Wilson and Harriet Jacobs' life. We both know that they are women, so the few similarities we could came up with here is the fact that they were both mistreated. They were used as servants either for sex or to do chores around the house, and sometimes for both. Both didn't have rights and were the commodity of their owner. As the difference, we know that the South treatment of slaves is more harder than the North, with the fact that women were forced to become mistresses of male slaves owners. In the South, women were threatened with their children being taken away from them if they do not do what the man was asking. Slaves had no legal right to a name. Women had no right to marry the men they loved and were forced to arrange marriages, which is not the case for Harriet Wilson from the North, who did eventually marry the man she loved, Thomas Wilson. And another difference is the fact that Harriet Wilson could learn how to read and write, which was not the case for Harriet Jacobs in the South. She was totally asked to not learn how to read. Similarities in the slave life of Harriet Jacob from the South and Frederick Douglass from the North. The only similarities between these different gender is the fact that they were both born into the slavery, the heart of the slavery. Douglass was born in the plantation and Harriet Jacob was born in a home. However, the home was full of slaves coming from her family, and they were both introduced to harsh slave condition at a young age. The difference here is the fact that Douglass, being a man, was asked to work hard, harder than a woman. He was asked to work for a long period of time in the plantation in the North for no pay, and he was beaten severely than the women. Or the woman, as an example of Harriet Jacob, was working inside the house. She was nurturing the children of her owner, which is the general position the woman slave was occupying during that time. She was asked to work inside, take care of the children, walk around the house, and she was also asked to please the slave owner. In summary, slaves in the antebellum South contributed about 1/3 of the southern population. Most slaves lived on large farms or small plantations. They were prohibited from learning to read and write, and their behavior and movement was restricted. Many slave masters took sexual liberties with slave women. All this happened in the South. This tells us again how stressful and tense the life of slaves were in the South. On the other hand, the abolition movement started in the North with free blacks and other anti-slavery Northerners. The Underground Railroad practice have helped from 40,000 to 100,000 slaves reach freedom. The success of this practice spread abolitionist feelings in the North and helped the North put pressure on slaves owners in the South. The goal of the pressure was to push the slaves owner to put a term on the slave practice of business. This tells us again, or emphasize our point. The North was not deeply in the business of slaves. Actually, they didn't even need any slaves since they were mostly industrialized. They had industries. They had European coming from Europe to actually start working there. And then from this explanation, we can also give a conclusion to why the movement of the slaves were happening from the south to the north. Actually, the slaves were looking for a better life, a better condition, have a decent job, paying job, I would say. So that's why they were moving to the north to get a decent job, to afford a place, a comfortable place where they could live with their family and raise their children. How men were treated and how women were treated is obvious. With the huge plantations in the south, the slave owners that needed some strong men, some men who could work for a long period of time, hard labor, I would say. Or in the north, they didn't need any slaves. Industry, they had machines who can do the slave's job, so they just needed control, like controlling people, or people who can just stand there and then make sure everything is doing right. So which explain also, this is another explanation of why the men was treated so harshly than the women. This map summarizes the way slavery was lived in the United States. From this map, we can see that the northern states were called free states, and then the southern states were called slave states. At this point, we know exactly why we call the southern states slave states, because of the huge plantations. Actually, they needed slaves to work on those plantations, because also because the economy of the south were depending on the plantation. So no workers, no plantation, no record, no revenue. And then the free states are the northern states. We know exactly why. First of all, they have industrialized states. So they have machines who can do the job. So they actually didn't need any slaves. And also the fact that one part of the abolitionist fighters were black and another part were white, because not all the whites were agreeing or supporting the slave business. One point we should really know. This is practically the end of my presentation of my video. Please, if you want to get more in touch with this subject, if you want to know more about the life of these the several writers I mentioned in the video, please go to these sources. These are the final sources. And then thank you for watching my video. Again, I'm Happy Ndasi, and for any comment, please feel free to comment this video for improvement purposes. Thank you. Bye bye.